These are just some amazing looking titles September 2024 is going to offer. Check out my recent Black Myth review, the new podcast channel, and go ahead and subscribe. God of War Ragnarok on the PC on September 19th. Ragnarok kicks off with Kratos and Boy spending time together long after the events of the first game. However, things just swiftly spin out of control, and you have to go out and explore the brewing chaos and try to stop it from escalating further, because there hasn't been a problem Kratos hasn't felt he could headbutt his way through. The journey takes him across the 9 realms as you continue on hacking, slashing, bashing, and blowing away enemies with ice axes and your boy's trusty bow and arrow. More gods, more killing, more Kratos, more everything, possibly even more resolution, more options, because it is, of course, on the PC. It actually feels like this makes sense, finally getting all these releases on the PC from Sony, whether it's Nixie's or one of their other port companies that they've worked with. Sony's had pretty great successes on PC ports, and finally, Ragnarok is on its way. I reviewed that game back when it came out on the PS5. You can see it in the reviews playlist, but it's a fantastic game as you play and try to stave off the upcoming Ragnarok. Be aware the game does actually include the God of War Ragnarok DLC as well, and in Valhalla, which is the DLC, Kratos really just has himself. That's it. He goes out, replayable roguelike, and it's a DLC that I've found to be fantastic. The adventure challenges you to master really both mind and body as you confront all the different trials of Valhalla. While the main game consistently asks of you the same talents as the original game did, but with just new powers, Valhalla is going to push you to master different elements of Kratos' arsenal during each attempt. You face new combinations of enemies, you encounter unexpected surprises, and it keeps the gameplay dynamic, challenging, and changing all the time, because with each death, Kratos retains weapons and skills and the abilities, but each new attempt resets the stats and the runic attacks and the perks. As you go through each run, you'll face choices that will identify and earn you different rewards, helping you push deeper into the depths of it all. And speaking of depths, we'll just have to play this to see how many options we have on the PC. Most of these ports have been good. Hopefully here we're going to get things that are beyond just the unlocked frame rate and the option for true 4K resolution we already know about. Also, remember, a PlayStation Network account is unfortunately going to be required to play that game. Another title from the Sony stable is Astrobot, September 6th. Astrobot is a little bit like a B-list actor who does a guest spot on a TV show, then suddenly head of their entire series. Astrobot was a free PS5 demo, a little robot that could 3D platformer. With the upcoming release of Astrobot 5 for PlayStation, this is on September 6th again, you have 80 levels across 6 galaxies, a ton of planets, a robotic third-person platforming game with all the physical and physics goodness. Players are going to be able to rescue more than 150 fellow bots across these worlds, and a lot of them are different iconic PlayStation characters like Kratos, Nathan Drake, and Ratchet. Is anyone else actually finally dusting off their PS5 for this? Because I just realized I haven't turned mine on in a while. Previews show the game running at close to 60 FPS. It looks amazing. Huge environments, tons of platforming, and once again, a massive amount of DualSense controller haptic feedback with the triggers and the controller, to the point where almost everything in the game that you can feel, the landscape, situations around you, and every surface is noticeably different. The team is putting together something amazing here, and I really can't wait to play it. Astrobot is a character-based game, meaning that if you don't like that character, it may not be for you, but with tons of skins and characters from other games, it seems like there's a little bit to appeal for everybody. With all the physics-based puzzles and the platforming and sort of mid or mini games all over the place, I'm actually very excited for this one. Next up, Greedfall 2: The Dying World, September 24th. Okay, Greedfall 1 hit the ground running, or maybe wobbling, when the first one came out. Like a dog with a funny walk, many of us just love the damn mud. Weird, a bit janky, strange story, all the things that pull people to indie projects where somehow inside a game closer in scope and size to a B-level title ended up working. It was amazing and, well, sometimes not good at all. Does Greedfall 2: The Dying World keep up that? Well, we'll have to see. We will know soon because it comes to early access on September 24th, developed by Spiders, of course, and published by Nacon. This sequel serves as a prequel to the original Greedfall, offering a different narrative that's set 3 years prior to the first game. Be aware, this isn't the same setup or gameplay as the original. The gameplay is a good deal different, a massive change really. It is a third-person RPG with some survival elements here and there, and it has a newer combat system with semi-real-time combat, taking a bit of inspiration from other RPGs that do the same. This has a pause-and-go kind of combat, where you can switch out attacks and spells and characters while pause, then start up the combat again. The early access version is going to feature the first chapter of the main quest, supposedly around 30% of the full game. which is estimated to last around 10 to 15 hours, with full release planned sometime in 2025. Speaking of playing the original and jumping to a new one, Frostpunk 2, September 20th. Frostpunk 2, developed and published by 11-Bit Studios. This is set to release on the 20th for Windows, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X. Frostpunk 2 continues the narrative of the predecessor. This is take place 30 years after the event of the original game. It's set in a world still gripped by a relentless icy climate. If you watched the videos, you know that I previewed this one as well and had a great time. The first noticeable thing that was instantly reflected in the gameplay for me is more choice and a freedom that those choices have that felt less like the one thing's works, we should all do that kind of gameplay the first one sometimes struggled with. And they've talked about it directly in interviews that that's what they're going for. You, again, are the leader of a frozen city, trying to keep the people warm, bellies full, and knives out of your damned backside. Because while the game builds on the foundation of city building and survival mechanics that the old one had, this time you have new factions that always want something. And the people in the city are also now represented by a city council. You have to extract resources, extract more work from workers, and extract more livable land from a world that basically just says, good luck, sucker, every time you start to try to do anything. The team has also grown to about 70 people handling the game, and it's in Unreal Engine 5. It looks gorgeous already. You have windswept, frozen fields, turning your workers into ice statues at a moment's notice. And so balancing the city's needs, the living needs, and the expansions that you have becomes this dangerous balancing act that is actually reflected quite well in the graphics and quite well in the presentation. An onomatopoeia of sorts when it comes to the HUD and the UI, where you can sort of identify what's going on by just paying attention to graphically what you see versus always needing to hit a button. And of course, if it's like the first game, most of us will lose that balance a couple dozen times before we figure out how to keep most of the people alive. Speaking of keeping something alive, Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown is not dead. It comes out September 12th. This is for PlayStation 5, Xbox, and PC, developed by KT Racing, and aims to try to hit right back at the original Unlimited series. Nothing like rip-roaring across Hong Kong Island. It's a 1-to-1 scale in a game closer to Forza Horizon, of course, and Test Drive Unlimited as well. Players can join one or two factions, the Sharps of the Streets, each with their own distinct style. But the game also has you going about other non-race activities, including social events and some kind of mini-games, or at least things connected to out-of-the-race car events. And you can also participate in clan wars, transport missions, and other events that contribute to this reputation within Solar Crown's community. Let's hope that the more than 100 cars from Ferrari, Bugatti, Lambo, and others don't get caught up in the meta of street gangs and the entire thing just loses its way. Because the idea of a Lambo going through a couple courses, then you're going and drinking a Fresca and basically signing into a defunct version of Home from the PlayStation 3 doesn't exactly entice right away. I admit the beta also didn't set the world on fire. It had some issues with graphics, sound effects bugs, and some really bad voiceovers. However, it does seem to have made some distinct improvements. I'm a huge fan of the open world racing scene. I like these kind of games if they're done well. I'm excited to see this one, so I'm crossing my fingers on it. Now here's a game I don't know as much about, but looks awesome, Plucky Squire. This is developed by All Possible Futures and developed by Devolver Digital. It's set to come out on September 17th on the PlayStation 5, Xbox X and S, Nintendo Switch, and PC. 2D and 3D gameplay, meshing and dynamically mixing, and seems to offer a pretty fresh take. It almost feels like it's drawn by a child telling a story. The game's about a squire from a children's storybook who goes out on a magical adventure based in a 2D world, but he's now also in a 3D world and can switch between the two in some way dynamically. This character can manipulate the words in the story to change the environment and solve puzzles. It includes different gameplay elements like platforming, it's got some combat, and different scenarios with each location when you complete it, turn in this fantasy page that you have completed, sort of like a chapter done. The mix of 3D and 2D, the dynamic switching, and the way the game plays out in the storybook moments looks incredible to me. Its graphic style is not going to appeal to everybody. To me, that presentation is something that looks just different enough that I want to experience it. Speaking of something that's different, but not really because it's just a remake, and that's Age of Mythology Retold September 4th for PC and Xbox X and S. Age of Mythology Retold heads back into history to just make some shit up. That's Age of Mythology right there, a real-time strategy game that is developed by World's Edge. The remake is going to try to bring the excellence of the original game into the future. It's got improved, well, pretty much everything, as well as rethought and remade systems for console gameplay. It's a massive real-time strategy game set in mythical ages where gods and monsters and humans collide with Greek, Egyptian, Norse, Atlantean, all different kinds of characters across different civilizations. The campaign mode spans 50 missions, takes players through all these different settings, from the walls of Troy to the frozen wastes of Midgard. At least that's what they say. Along the main campaign, there's also multiplayer matches with friends or against enemies that are AI on randomly generated maps. They also have at least 2 expansions planned. The first is a Chinese civilization, the other they haven't stated exactly what it is. They've emphasized that their commitment is to continue balancing and updating this game as it moves forward. Honestly, we're just going to have to see that to believe it. The remakes from Xbox in the RTS genre haven't actually been half bad at all, and Age of Mythology is less than half a month away. Next up, Disney Epic Mickey Rebrushed. This is September 24th. Nothing says love and magic like covering everything in your own magic mouse color spit from a hairy wand and restoring the world with color. Mickey Rebrushed is set to bring all of the classic game that was originally released on the Wii, and this one here will be on PlayStation 5 and 4, Xbox Series X and S and 1, Nintendo Switch, and PC. Rebrushed is redone from the ground up. Better graphics, smoother, more detail, and hopefully all that helps you is once again your Mickey Mouse getting in trouble with tampering with a magic paintbrush and changing the world. The game takes players through the wasteland. This is a realm of forgotten Disney characters and stories. Everything is really harkening back to the past Disney cartoons and characters, and that kind of thing really does appeal to me. The reason why this is getting a remake, or at least the reason why it really makes sense that it is, especially since Disney isn't the most well-received IP these days, might be because the original game controlled like absolute dog crap. While it was a good idea, it just didn't handle it with the control and fidelity back in the day, something the developers are aiming to directly fix now. And originally, I liked the first game, but those controls were so bad that it pushed me off pretty seriously. And luckily, you're going to be able to use all kinds of traditional controllers. You can do the Switch Pro and also just any 2-stick setup. And that's one of the best parts of what I've seen of this. It looks to just make a huge step forward, not only in the graphics and the sound, but again, in the control and letting players actually, enjoy the game. Speaking of games that have changed a bit but are coming back, and that is Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster on the 19th of September. Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster is Capcom's, of course, remake of one of their best zombie franchises' very first titles. This is coming out for the PlayStation 5, Xbox X and S, and PC, and I previewed this one last week. I had a blast. The game's made some significant strides in the gameplay department, in particular, improving the HUD, the options, the controls, including the ability to actually move and shoot in a first-person camera with a gun, which seems like a no-brainer, but the original always cemented Frank's feet to the damned ground. The remaster is developed on Capcom's RE engine and brings the game up to a native 4K resolution at 60 frames per second if you can run it. The graphical upgrade enhances the game's environments, from the different Parkview Mall areas to the lighting, character models, with more expressive facial animations and detailed textures, things that I did know for the most part and did notice when I was playing the preview. In Dead Rising Deluxe Remastered, you step into the shoes of Frank West again and go out as this photojournalist who's covered wars, and you're covering this mall that has been overrun by zombies and what's happened with the zombie virus. Moving around the different game world, jumping around to different stores in the malls, it is just a blast. Capcom has addressed several criticisms of the original game as well, including the save system and some bad AI for the NPC survivors. The remaster also features auto-saving at different points while still allowing you to manual save at designated locations, such as the security rooms and the malls and the restrooms. NPCs have also been given a pretty complete overhaul, including everyone actually getting a voice. Be aware they removed the ability to take pictures of women from crazy angles and get points for it. It was weird then, and it would have been weird now, but I get why some fans may say, they removed the OnlyFans Lite version of this, so I ain't buying it. The game will be released digitally first, and then there's a physical edition coming at a later time. All that being said, I love my time with it. Nothing better than bouncing a thick plastic sword off the head of an undead and then sitting down for some pizzas to make sure you're fed. It was an enjoyable preview. I hope the main game holds up. Next up, Aura History Untold. It's your world now. Aura History Untold is a 4X grand strategy game. This is from Oxide Games, and it's published by Xbox Game Studios. It'll be on Windows and PC. With PC Game Pass Day 1, I would agree what you might be thinking right now. This might be the most unengaging name ever. Listen, History Untold, it's a little like an unofficial official account or non-fictional magic user stories. But basically, you're sort of supposed to get the idea that the game is in a historical setting with none of the historical actual situations controlling what you do. It's a 4X strategy game in an alternative history, or basically meaning completely fake, but with real events bookended, so you take control of people and nations that were real and then do some magical shit with them all the time in the name of winning. The game is going to go after that turn-based strategy style, but the gameplay system is all at once, meaning that when everybody is done choosing what they do, all actions take place at the same time. And we'll just have to see how that works with multiplayer, online, and even campaign mode. You build a nation, you lead your people through history to be the pinnacle of human achievement as you explore new lands, develop art and culture, diplomacy, and go head-to-head with others. The big claim to fame the developers have made is that this is a living world system which shows the changes to technology, agriculture, and the overall civilizations procedurally, and not just as static buildings and numbers and landscapes. Engage in nukes, coal power, animal husbandry, huge human-erected statues, buildings, complexes, and other wonders of the world, all the while jumping around a tech tree and choosing what you want to use when you want to use it. Also, yeah, the game has a ton of characters you can be, from Joan of Arc to Genghis Khan, both super hilarious and laid-back leaders. We'll just have to see how this one comes together. I love the idea, I just really need to identify what they're trying to deliver in this title. Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine, out on September 9th. Unless you're a heretic, you know Warhammer 40k Space Marine's coming out, but if you are, it's a sequel to the original. So the feel's somewhat of a mix between the original game and the horde mechanics of World War Z. Redone with more Xenos. You're walking tanks with cannons for guns and chainswords for the times that you need to be diplomatic. Somehow, it honestly feels like we've been waiting 40,000 years for this. As you know, I previewed the game twice with lengthy hands-on. It just has breathtaking graphics, huge environments, gothic architecture, and literally all the bad guys at once. It's a flood of enemies coming to you at all times. The game lets you play the main story with up to 2 other players, working through a ton of levels, as well as one hell of an in-depth customization system as you level up. There's also the introduction of the new 3-player co-op mode, Operations, which allows players to choose from 6 different classes, offering a variety of gameplay styles and customizations between weapons and armor types. The ability to personalize Space Marines with your own colors, decals, and armor components means if you want your ACG Space Marine decked out in yellow and black with a cool-ass sickle design, you can do it. It looks awesome and plays great, though I can say that the bots winning campaign weren't the greatest, which is a good reflection of the engine's original limits with World War Z bosses. But overall, it worked great. There's also PvP mode, 6v6, dropping huge heavy Space Marines into competitive shooting spaces and locations and trying to dome some POS in the face. There's also some honorable mentions. I already previewed Wild Bastards. That's coming out on the 12th. The Last Song is coming out on the 18th. And I'm sure there's a bunch of games that are on this list or not on this list that you might actually want to engage in. Feel free to comment and go ahead and subscribe if you get a chance. It absolutely helps the channel. Check out the podcast on the other channel where we do a meeting every Friday of the minds, the most intelligent gamers together to talk about the stupidest stuff. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week. Check out the Patreon too.